Stop. Stop what you're doing and listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you has never been reported anywhere. Not by the tabloids, not by the palace correspondents, not by any mainstream outlet. And the reason it hasn't been reported is because the people involved are spending millions, literal millions, to make sure you never hear it. I'm talking about California Child Protective Services opening an active investigation file on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. I'm talking about $6.7 million in children's earnings that appear to have vanished. I'm talking about fraudulent asset transfers, sealed court filings, and a guardian ad litem who was secretly appointed to represent Archie and Lilibet just 3 weeks ago. And I'm talking about 2 children, 5 years old and 3 years old, who may be at the center of the most devastating royal scandal in modern history. Stay with me for every second of this. Because by the time I'm finished, you will understand why Harry has been frantically calling his father begging for help, why Meghan has hired 3 separate family law attorneys in the past month alone, and why Buckingham Palace has gone completely, deliberately silent. Before I lay out the evidence, I need you to understand something about me. I've covered royal stories for 30 years. I knew Diana personally. I watched William and Harry grow up. I've witnessed scandals, divorces, abdications, custody battles. But what's happening right now with Archie and Lilibet is something I never thought I would witness in my lifetime. Because this is not about 2 parents having a disagreement. This is not tabloid gossip. This is about whether those children are being exploited for financial gain, whether they actually exist in the way we've been told, and what happens when a California bankruptcy court starts asking questions that the Sussexes absolutely cannot answer. And the evidence, the hard documented court-filed evidence, is jaw-dropping. Let me start with the foundation, because if you don't understand how California bankruptcy law works with minor children, nothing else I'm about to reveal will make full sense. Under California Bankruptcy Code, when you file Chapter 7 or Chapter 11, you are legally required to disclose every single asset you possess. Everything. Bank accounts, properties, vehicles, jewelry, investments, and yes, any financial instruments or trust funds held in your children's names. You must also disclose all sources of income. That includes any money earned through your children's images, their names, or their likenesses. Let me be very clear about what this means for Harry and Meghan. Those children have appeared in Netflix documentaries. Their names have been trademarked. Their images have been licensed to media outlets around the world. According to entertainment law experts I've consulted directly, Archie and Lilibet have generated approximately $6.7 million in direct and indirect revenue since their births. $6.7 million from 2 children who can barely speak in full sentences. Now here's where it gets critical. Under California law, that money, every dollar of it, should be held in what are called Coogan accounts. If you don't know what a Coogan account is, let me explain. It's a special block trust account named after child actor Jackie Coogan, designed specifically to protect child performers' earnings from being stolen by their parents. The law is explicit. 15% of all earnings from any commercial use of a child's image must be deposited directly into a block trust account that the parents cannot touch, not reduce, not borrow against, cannot touch, period, until the child turns 18. And here's the bombshell. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that Archie or Lilibet have Coogan accounts. I had a researcher spend 3 full weeks searching California court records, trust registrations, and financial disclosures. Nothing exists. 0. So I need you to answer a very simple question. Where did that $6.7 million go? Because I'll tell you where the evidence points. It went into Archewell accounts. It went into personal accounts. It got spent on private jets and designer wardrobes and that Montecito mansion. The children's earnings were allegedly treated as Harry and Meghan's personal income. And that is not a gray area. That is not a technicality. That is illegal. Staggeringly, obviously, criminally illegal. And when the bankruptcy trustee completes their review of the finances, which is happening right now as I speak to you, this will be discovered immediately. And when it's discovered, California Child Protective Services gets involved automatically. Not by choice, by law. Because using your children's earnings to fund your personal lifestyle isn't just financial fraud. It's classified as financial abuse of minors. But wait, because what I just told you, that's not even the worst part. Not even close. Let me tell you about something called a fraudulent transfer. And I need you to pay very close attention here, because this is the mechanism that could send Meghan Markle to prison. In bankruptcy law, if you move assets around to hide them from creditors, if you transfer money, property, or rights into someone else's name so that a court can't seize them, those transfers can be reversed. The trustee has the legal power to claw back every dollar that was improperly moved, even years after the fact. Now, here's what we know about Meghan's financial movements in the past 2 years. And this is where it gets truly disturbing. In March of 2023, Meghan established something called the Lilibet Diana Trust. She registered it in Delaware, and that choice of state was not accidental. Delaware is specifically known for privacy protections in trust matters. Very little information is publicly available. But what we do know from sources who have seen the trust documents is deeply troubling. Substantial assets were moved into this trust: properties, cash, potentially even intellectual property rights. And the stated beneficiary? Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, a 3-year-old child. On the surface, this looks like a mother protecting her daughter's inheritance. That's exactly what Meghan would want you to think. But every single bankruptcy lawyer I've consulted, everyone, says this has all the hallmarks of a textbook fraudulent transfer. Moving assets into a child's name to shield them from creditors while you continue to benefit from those assets, that is fraud. Plain and simple. Plain and here's the smoking gun. The Montecito mansion's title was allegedly partially transferred to this trust in August of 2023. Let that timing sink in. August 2023. Right when their financial situation was collapsing. Right when they would have known, their accountants would have told them, that bankruptcy was becoming inevitable. If that's proven, if a judge determines that Meghan moved assets into her 3-year-old daughter's name to hide them from creditors, those assets get clawed back. But more importantly, far more importantly, it raises a question that should disturb every single person watching this. What kind of mother uses her 3-year-old daughter as a shield in a bankruptcy fraud scheme? California Family Court does not look kindly on that kind of behavior. Neither does CPS. And neither will you, once you hear what comes next. Now, before I go any further, I need to ask you something. If you've watched this far, if this information matters to you, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to reveal in the next section has never been reported anywhere by anyone. And when this video gets suppressed, and trust me, there are people working right now to make sure you never see it. The only way you'll know when the follow-up drops is if you're subscribed with that bell turned on. Do it now, because what comes next changes everything. Let's talk about custody, because California has very specific laws about what happens when parents are involved in bankruptcy, when there are questions about financial fraud, and when there is evidence that children are being used for financial gain. The court has the power to appoint an independent guardian ad litem. That's a lawyer, a court-appointed lawyer, whose only job, whose sole legal obligation is to represent the children's interests. Not the mother's interests, not the father's, the children's. And according to multiple sources I trust with my career, a guardian ad litem was quietly appointed for Archie and Lilibet in November of 2024, 3 weeks ago. This has not been reported anywhere. The filing was sealed. But it happened. And what does a guardian ad litem actually do? They investigate everything. Where the children actually live, who takes care of them on a daily basis, what their lives really look like behind those mansion walls, whether they're being properly educated, whether they're being exploited, whether their parents are fit. They interview teachers, doctors, nannies, neighbors. They review every financial record. They examine exactly how the children's images have been used commercially. And then they report directly to the judge with recommendations. And if they determine that those children are being used as financial instruments, that their welfare is being compromised by their parents' reckless, illegal behavior, they can recommend anything: supervised visitation, reduced custody, or removal of custody entirely. Now, I need you to understand something crucial. Guardians ad litem are not appointed casually. They're only brought in when there are serious, substantiated concerns: abuse, neglect, or in this case, financial exploitation. Someone filed a complaint. Someone raised red flags serious enough that a California judge took action. Who was it? My sources say it came from within the household, former staff members, people who were fired, people who saw things that troubled them deeply, people who went to the authorities with specific, detailed allegations about how Archie and Lilibet are actually living. Let me tell you what they allegedly reported. And I want to be absolutely clear. These are allegations from people who were there, who worked inside that house, who witnessed the day-to-day reality with their own eyes. First allegation. The children are rarely seen in public not because of genuine safety concerns, but because Meghan allegedly controls every single image, every appearance, every photo opportunity for commercial purposes. The logic, according to former staff, is calculated. The less the public sees the children, the more valuable each appearance becomes. One former nanny, speaking anonymously to authorities, allegedly stated that Meghan would sometimes keep the children confined inside the house for weeks at a time. Then suddenly she would organize elaborate photo shoots or carefully staged appearances, always when she needed publicity, always when money was running low. That's not parenting. That's management. Those children are being treated like assets to be deployed strategically for maximum commercial return. Second allegation. That famous $2.1 million spent on their security in 2023, most of that money didn't go to actual security. It went to NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, forcing every single person who comes into contact with those children to sign away their right to ever speak about what they witnessed. Nannies, drivers, doctors, teachers, housekeepers, everyone who interacts with Archie and Lilibet must sign these agreements. Now ask yourself something. Why? Why would you spend millions silencing people who see your children, unless you are desperately hiding something you cannot afford to let the public know? One security expert I spoke with said it plainly. You don't spend millions on NDAs unless you're hiding something. Third allegation. And this is where it gets truly disturbing. Multiple staff members have independently reported that Meghan's behavior toward the children changes dramatically, almost unrecognizably, depending on whether cameras are present. When photographers are around, when documentaries are being filmed, when there's commercial value in the moment, Meghan is the picture-perfect mother, attentive, affectionate, engaged, beautiful to watch. But when the cameras disappear, staff members allegedly describe her as distant, disinterested, visibly frustrated by the children's presence. One former employee stated that Meghan once said, and I'm quoting from the filed allegation, "I didn't go through all this to be stuck at home with children. That's what nannies are for." If true, and I emphasize if true, that single statement reveals something profoundly dark about her motivations. Those children weren't wanted for themselves. They were wanted because royal babies have value. They generate interest. They generate sympathy. They generate content opportunities worth millions. But the actual reality of raising them, that's delegated to staff members who can never speak publicly about what they see. Now, contrast this, just for a moment, with how William and Catherine raised their children. Yes, they have help. Every royal family has staff. But George, Charlotte, and Louis are seen regularly. At school, at events, at church. They interact with family. They have routines. Their parents are visibly, genuinely engaged in their daily lives. Those children aren't hidden away like trade secrets. They're not paraded out exclusively when commercially convenient. They're raised as real children with real relationships and real childhoods. Archie and Lilibet, we've seen them a handful of times in years. Carefully controlled images, professional photo shoots, Netflix content, never candid, never spontaneous, never just children living normal children's lives. That's not protection, that's exploitation. And California family courts are finally starting to ask why. Let me tell you about the specific legal mechanism that could destroy Meghan's custody claims entirely. It's called the California Child Welfare Best Interest Standard. Under this statute, courts are required to consider multiple factors when determining custody: financial stability, evidence of using children for commercial gain, and most critically, whether a parent is providing a stable, consistent home environment. If the bankruptcy reveals massive debt, which it will, if the fraudulent transfers are proven, which the evidence suggests they will be, if the evidence confirms the children have been commercially exploited without proper legal protections, Meghan fails on all three counts. Financial stability, they're bankrupt. Commercial gain, $6.7 million in undocumented earnings from the children's images. Stable environment, a mother allegedly using her toddler daughter's name to hide assets from creditors. The judge could rule, and multiple legal experts believe the judge will rule, that those children would be better served in a stable alternative environment. And here's where it gets extraordinary, because guess what the stable alternative is? The royal family, specifically Harry's family in Britain, under international custody law, particularly the Hague Convention on International Child Abduction, which both the United States and United Kingdom have signed. If a court determines that children are being harmed or exploited in one country, they can be relocated to family members in another country who can provide proper care. King Charles is those children's grandfather. Prince William is their uncle. They have family in Britain who are financially stable, who live in some of the most protected residences on earth, who can provide world-class education, genuine security, and most importantly, a normal family life, completely removed from commercial exploitation. The California court could, theoretically, legally actually, award custody to the royal family and order Harry to return to Britain with both children. Can you imagine, after everything Harry and Meghan have done, after all the interviews trashing the royals, after Spare, after Oprah, after Netflix, those children could end up being raised at Kensington Palace. The irony would be spectacular, the karma would be poetic, and the humiliation would be complete. Remember what I said at the beginning about why Buckingham Palace has gone completely silent. Now you understand, they're not ignoring this situation, they're preparing for it. But I'll get to the palace's plan in a moment. First, you need to understand where Harry stands in all of this, because here's the truly tragic dimension that nobody is talking about. Harry is realizing, far too late, what he's gotten himself into. Sources close to the situation say Harry has been quietly, desperately trying to position himself as the primary caregiver. He's been staying home more, reducing travel, making himself visible with the children whenever photographers are present. Why? Because his lawyers have told him the truth. When this divorce happens, and make no mistake, it is happening, his only chance of maintaining any custody is proving he was the stable, present parent while Meghan was consumed by business ventures and spending sprees. But here's his devastating problem. He enabled every single thing she did. He stood by while Netflix filmed inside his children's lives. He participated in commercializing their images. He signed off on using their names for branded content. He is legally complicit in everything Meghan has done. A California family court judge isn't going to see Harry as the innocent victim. They're going to see two parents who exploited their children for profit, two parents who now face consequences. And with Harry's visa situation in America still unresolved, with serious documented questions about whether he lied on his immigration forms regarding drug use, there is a very real, very legal possibility that he could be deported, forced to leave the country, separated from his children by an ocean. If that happens, if Harry is deported and Meghan retains custody in California, he becomes a long-distance father, video calls, supervised visits twice a year at most, exactly what he accused the royal family of wanting to do to him. Let that sink in. The exact scenario Harry claimed to fear, the very thing he said he was fleeing from, is happening anyway, just in California instead of London. The pattern is repeating. Everything he ran from is catching him. And this time there's no institution to blame, no palace machine to point at, just consequences. But here's what truly breaks my heart about this entire situation. And I need you to hear me on this because the legal details and the financial fraud, as important as they are not what this story is really about. Archie and Lilibet are innocent, completely, utterly innocent. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask to be born into chaos. They didn't ask to have their images sold to the highest bidder. They didn't ask to have their names trademarked before they could spell them. They didn't ask to be used as pawns in their parents' commercial ventures and bankruptcy schemes. They are 5 and 3 years old, 5 and 3. They should be going to school, playing with friends, having sleepovers, learning to ride bikes, scraping their knees and laughing about it. Normal, beautiful, unremarkable childhood things. Instead, they're reportedly hidden away in a Montecito mansion, surrounded by staff who've been forced to sign NDAs, trotted out for cameras exclusively when their mother needs content, while their parents' financial empire collapses around them like a burning building. What happens to those children when Meghan and Harry lose the house, when the bankruptcy court liquidates assets, when they're forced to downsize from a mansion to something they can actually afford? What happens when the divorce finalizes and the custody battles begin in earnest? When lawyers are arguing in open court about who gets the children for Christmas, who pays for school, whether they should be raised in America or Britain? What happens when those children are old enough to type their parents' names into a search engine and they read about the financial fraud, the commercial exploitation, the bankruptcy, the sealed court filings? when they discover that before they could even read, they were being used as commodities instead of being loved as children. The damage being done right now is incalculable, and it's entirely preventable. If Harry had stayed in Britain, if he'd maintained his role as a working royal, those children would be growing up as Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, protected, secure, part of a family that has survived for 1,000 years. Instead, they're assets in a bankruptcy case and subjects of a CPS investigation. The Queen saw this coming. She warned Harry before she died. She told him, and this has been confirmed by multiple palace sources, your children will pay the price for your choices. He didn't listen. He thought love conquered all. He thought Meghan was worth burning every bridge behind him. Now his children are paying exactly as Elizabeth predicted. Let me tell you what I believe happens next. Because I've watched patterns like this unfold before, and they always end the same way. Within the next 60 days, the bankruptcy trustee will complete their investigation. They will discover the fraudulent transfers. They will discover the missing Coogan accounts. They will discover the systematic commercial exploitation of 2 minor children. They will recommend criminal referrals for fraud. Simultaneously, the Guardian ad litem will file their report with the court. If it's negative, and every indication suggests it will be, if they recommend custody modifications, Meghan will fight. She'll claim persecution, racism, media bias, coordinated attacks, all the same deflections she's used for 5 years. But here's what she doesn't understand. California family courts don't care about celebrity. They don't care about status. They don't care about your Netflix deal or your Oprah interview. They care about one thing only, children's welfare. And if the evidence shows those children have been exploited, Meghan loses. Full stop. Harry, seeing the writing on the wall, seeing no other option, will likely try to position himself as the responsible parent. He'll potentially testify against Meghan's business practices. He'll throw her under the bus to save himself and his relationship with his children, and that destroys the marriage completely, whatever was left of it. Divorce proceedings accelerate. The custody battle turns vicious, public, and devastating for everyone involved. Meanwhile, the royal family watches from London, silent, patient, waiting, because they know something Harry and Meghan have never understood. They know that eventually, inevitably, mathematically, legally, those children will need stability, real stability. And when California courts determine that neither Harry nor Meghan can provide it, when they look for stable family alternatives with the resources and infrastructure to raise 2 children safely, there's really only one option on earth. The children go to Britain, to their grandfather, the king, to their Uncle William, to Kensington Palace, where they can grow up protected, educated, and genuinely loved. Not as commercial assets, as royal children, as family. Harry can go with them, return to Britain, rebuild what he destroyed, or he can stay in America and watch his children raised by the very institution he spent years trying to tear apart. Either way, either scenario, Meghan loses. She will never return to Britain. She's too despised there. The public would never accept her. So she either loses her children to Harry and the royals, or she fights the court's ruling and proves, in the process of fighting, that she is exactly what everyone has said all along. A manipulator who used those children for profit and is willing to damage them further to maintain control. This is the real tragedy of the Sussex saga. Not that Harry and Meghan failed, not that they're going bankrupt, not even that their marriage is ending. The tragedy is that 2 innocent children are caught in the middle, used, exploited, hidden, commodified, and now potentially at the center of custody battles and bankruptcy proceedings that will define their entire childhoods. Archie and Lilibet deserve better. They deserve parents who put their welfare before their ambition, who protected them from exploitation rather than engineering it, who provided stability and unconditional love without commercial calculations attached to every interaction. Instead, they got Harry and Meghan, and now they'll pay the price, the full, devastating price, for their parents' ambition, greed, and recklessness. When this custody battle explodes into public view, and it will, when the court documents are unsealed, when the allegations become permanent public record, remember this: I told you it was coming. I've been warning about this for years, while others called me obsessed, called me bitter, called me racist for daring to hold Meghan Markle accountable. Those children are not props. They are not assets on a balance sheet. They are not content. They are human beings who deserve protection, stability, and parents who actually put their needs first. California is about to decide whether Harry and Meghan are capable of providing that. And based on every piece of evidence I've seen, I do not believe they are. So tell me in the comments right now, am I wrong? Am I being too harsh? Or is this exactly what you've been thinking as you've watched this disaster unfold in slow motion for 5 years? Because I genuinely want to know, what do you think should happen to parents who allegedly spent $2.1 million on security and NDAs while systematically exploiting their own children's images for profit? Now, if you've made it this far, you absolutely need to stay subscribed, because what I'm revealing in the next video is even more explosive than everything you just heard. The next video is going to expose exactly what happens when King Charles finally intervenes. There are conversations happening right now, this week, between Buckingham Palace legal counsel and California family court officials that nobody in the media knows about. Legal mechanisms being prepared, diplomatic channels being activated, options being weighed at the highest levels. And what I've uncovered about Charles's specific plan for his grandchildren, the actual documented strategy being assembled right now, is genuinely shocking. It involves names you would never expect and legal maneuvers that have never been attempted by a sitting monarch. So hit that subscribe button right now. Click the notification bell, because when that video drops, you will want to see it the moment it goes live. And share this video. Share it everywhere. Send it to anyone who still defends Harry and Meghan's parenting. Send it to anyone who thinks I'm being unfair. Send it to anyone who cares about children being protected. Because the more people understand what's really happening behind those Montecito walls, the harder it becomes for anyone to cover it up. Subscribe, bell, share. The custody battle is here. The children's welfare hangs in the balance. And the truth is, finally coming out. Everything I predicted is happening. Those children are the victims, and California is about to decide their fate.